sunny morning fills Peppa's house with familiar laughter and warmth. Peppa and George play in their bedroom, the bunk bed standing against the wall with George below and Peppa above. Mummy Pig cooks breakfast in the kitchen while Daddy Pig reads his newspaper in the living room. Everything seems perfectly normal, but a subtle tension hangs in the air like morning mist. Peppa jumps in muddy puddles outside, her usual joyful squeals echoing through the garden. But something feels different today. Her jumps are more aggressive, more violent. The mud splashes higher than usual, covering her face in dark streaks. Her eyes gleam with an unusual hunger as she stares at the dirty water. The family gathers for lunch around their familiar red table. Peppa sits quietly, which is very unusual for her. Her parents exchange worried glances as she pushes her food around the plate. Suddenly, Peppa's teeth begin to grow longer and sharper. Nobody notices at first, but the transformation has begun. Peppa and Susie play in the garden, but the games have changed. Peppa chases Susie with predatory intensity, her new teeth clicking together hungrily. Susie runs in terror, her bleating cries echoing across the hills. The innocent playground has become a hunting ground. Mummy and Daddy Pig finally see what their daughter has become. They stand frozen in the doorway, unable to comprehend the monster their sweet Peppa has turned into. Her growls fill the house, replacing the laughter that once echoed through these walls. The family portrait on the wall seems to watch in silent horror. Peppa prowls through the house at night, her teeth gleaming in the moonlight streaming through the windows. Every creak of the floorboards sounds like a predator stalking its prey. The familiar home has become a dark maze where danger lurks in every shadow. The other animal families in the village begin to disappear one by one. Empty houses dot the hillside like missing teeth in a smile. Only muddy footprints and strange bite marks remain as evidence of what happened. The cheerful community has become a ghost town. Grandpa Pig arrives to find his family's house eerily quiet. He calls out for everyone, but only silence answers. The sun sets over the empty village as Peppa stands alone on the hilltop. Her transformation is complete. She is no longer the innocent little pig everyone loved. The wind carries her haunting laughter across the abandoned landscape. The lesson is clear. Sometimes the monsters we fear most are the ones we create ourselves. It was bedtime at Peppa Pig's house, and the evening shadows grew longer across the children's bedroom. Peppa climbed into her top bunk while George settled into his bed below. The familiar pink wardrobe stood in the corner, its doors slightly ajar. The house fell into peaceful silence, but something felt different tonight. A strange scratching sound echoed from inside Peppa's wardrobe. Peppa lay awake, listening to the odd noises coming from her closet. The scratching grew louder, accompanied by a low, rumbling growl. She pulled her blanket over her head, hoping it was just her imagination. George stirred below, whimpering softly in his sleep. The wardrobe door creaked open wider, and a cold draft filled the room. Two glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness of the closet, watching Peppa with hungry intensity. She wanted to call for Mummy and Daddy, but fear had stolen her voice. The creature in the wardrobe began to emerge, its massive shadow stretching across the bedroom wall. It had long, twisted claws and matted fur that seemed to absorb the light. Peppa finally found her courage and screamed for help, waking George, who began crying in terror. The monster paused, tilting its enormous head as footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mummy and Daddy Pig burst into the room, switching on the lights. The creature vanished instantly, leaving only the open wardrobe and two frightened children. Mummy Pig comforted Peppa while Daddy Pig checked the wardrobe thoroughly, finding nothing unusual. They assured the children it was just a nightmare and tucked them back into bed. But as soon as the parents left, the scratching sounds returned, more aggressive than before. The monster's eyes reappeared in the darkness, and this time it stepped fully into the room. Its massive form towered over the bunk beds, dripping with an otherworldly darkness. Peppa and George huddled together, too terrified to move or scream. The next morning, Peppa told her family about the monster, but they dismissed it as an overactive imagination. At breakfast, dark circles shadowed her eyes from lack of sleep. Susie Sheep came to play, and Peppa desperately tried to explain about the creature in her wardrobe. Susie laughed it off, suggesting they play dress-up with Peppa's clothes. But when they opened the wardrobe, all of Peppa's beautiful dresses were torn to shreds, hanging in tatters. Strange claw marks scarred the wooden walls inside the closet. That evening, Peppa begged to sleep in her parents' room, but they insisted she face her fears. Daddy Pig installed a new lock on the wardrobe door, thinking it would help. As night fell, the familiar scratching began again, but this time the locked door rattled violently. The monster was trying to break free, its growls echoing through the house. The lock held for a while, but then came a tremendous crash as the wardrobe door exploded open. The creature emerged, larger than ever before. The monster's presence filled the room with an icy chill that made the windows frost over. It moved with predatory grace toward Peppa's bed, its red eyes burning with malevolent hunger. George had fainted from fear, lying motionless in his lower bunk. Peppa pressed herself against the wall, watching in horror as the creature's claws extended toward her. Just then, Grandpa Pig appeared in the doorway, holding an old, leather-bound book. His face was grim but determined as he began reading ancient words in a language Peppa didn't understand. The monster recoiled from Grandpa Pig's words, writhing as if in pain. Grandpa continued his incantation, and the creature began to shrink and fade. He explained that this was an ancient shadow beast that fed on children's fears. Grandpa Pig sealed the wardrobe with special symbols drawn in white chalk, explaining that the monster could never return as long as the seals remained intact. He told Peppa that courage was the strongest weapon against such creatures, and that she had been braver than she knew. The family gathered around, finally believing Peppa's story after witnessing the supernatural events. With the monster gone, peace returned to the Pig household. Peppa slept soundly for the first time in days, no longer afraid of the darkness in her room. And though Peppa grew up to be brave and strong, she never forgot the lesson that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are more than just imagination. A sunny morning fills Peppa's house with familiar laughter and joy. Peppa and George play in their bedroom while Daddy Pig reads newspaper downstairs. Mummy Pig prepares breakfast in the kitchen, humming her favorite tune. Everything seems perfectly normal in their cozy little home. Strange green mist seeps through the kitchen window as Mummy Pig cooks. The mist swirls around her feet, unnoticed and silent. Mummy Pig continues cooking, but her movements become slower and more mechanical. Her cheerful humming gradually fades into an eerie silence. Peppa bounces down the stairs calling for breakfast with George following behind. They enter the kitchen expecting warm pancakes and Mummy's bright smile. Instead, they find Mummy Pig standing motionless, staring at the wall. Her eyes have turned a pale, cloudy white color. Peppa and George scream as Mummy Pig lurches toward them with jerky movements. Daddy Pig quickly grabs the children and rushes them upstairs. They lock themselves in the bedroom while strange groaning sounds echo. Mummy Pig's footsteps shuffle heavily on the stairs below. The family huddles together as Mummy Pig pounds on the bedroom door. Grandpa Pig arrives in his car, honking the horn frantically outside. Through the window, they see other zombie neighbors wandering the streets. Daddy Pig creates a rope from bedsheets to escape through the window. Peppa and George climb down carefully while Daddy follows behind them. The family runs to Grandpa Pig's car as zombie neighbors approach slowly. Grandpa Pig drives them away from the infected village quickly. At Grandpa's safe house, they discover a cure in his medicine cabinet. The green antidote glows mysteriously in a small glass bottle. Daddy Pig realizes they must return to save Mummy Pig. Despite the danger, love conquers their fear of the zombies. They return to find Mummy Pig collapsed in the garden, weak. Daddy Pig carefully gives her the glowing green antidote medicine. Slowly, her normal pink color returns and her eyes clear. Mummy Pig awakens, confused but completely back to normal again. A sunny morning fills Peppa's house with familiar laughter. Peppa and George play in their bedroom where the bunk bed stands against the wall, George below, Peppa above. Mummy Pig cooks in the kitchen while Daddy Pig reads his newspaper in the living room. Everything seems normal, but a subtle, barely noticeable tension hangs in the air. The lights in Peppa's room begin to flicker strangely. The toys on the shelf start moving by themselves, slowly turning their heads toward the children. Peppa notices something is wrong but tries to stay calm. George's dinosaur toy falls to the floor with a loud crash, making both children jump. Downstairs, Mummy Pig hears strange noises coming from upstairs. The kitchen lights dim and brighten repeatedly. Plates and cups on the counter start rattling without any wind. She calls for Daddy Pig, but her voice sounds hollow and distant in the suddenly cold house. Daddy Pig's newspaper pages turn by themselves as he sits frozen in his chair. The television switches channels rapidly, showing only static and dark images. His glasses fog up mysteriously, and he can hear whispers coming from the walls around him. Peppa and George huddle together on the lower bunk as shadows move across their bedroom walls. The wardrobe door creaks open slowly, revealing nothing but darkness inside. Cold air flows from the opening. Both children shiver as their breath becomes visible in the suddenly freezing room. The family gathers in the living room, all looking pale and frightened. Outside, the sky has turned an unnatural gray color despite it being midday. The windows fog up from inside, and strange handprints appear on the glass. No one speaks as they watch the mysterious marks spread across every window. Susie Sheep arrives at the front door, but her eyes are completely white and her movements are stiff and unnatural. She speaks in a voice that doesn't sound like her own, asking to come inside. The ghost finally reveals itself as a translucent figure floating in the center of the living room. It wears old-fashioned clothes and has a sad, lonely expression. The temperature drops even further, and everyone's breath creates thick clouds of vapor. The ghost reaches out toward the family with pale, ghostly hands. Peppa bravely steps forward and asks the ghost why it's in their house. The ghost explains in a hollow voice that it lived in this house long ago and just wants to be remembered. It shows them old photographs that appear floating in the air, depicting a happy family from many years past. The family realizes the ghost isn't evil, just lonely and forgotten. They invite the ghost to stay and be part of their family memories. The house returns to normal as warm sunlight streams through the windows again. The ghost becomes a friendly presence, helping with small tasks and playing gentle games with Peppa and George. The family learns that sometimes what seems scary is just someone who needs kindness and understanding. They all laugh together as the ghost tickles them with invisible fingers, and the house fills with joy once more.